Come on, Cavs. Gotta make it happen. Come on, Cavs. Gotta make it happen with your fast break action. Gotta make it happen. Just keep on coming on. Gotta make it happen. Come on, Cavs. Gotta make it happen. Come on, Cavs. Gotta make it happen.
It's Matty and Patty, coast to coast. From Brooklyn, it's Pat McMenamin. To San Francisco, it's Matt Youngner. Say hello, Matty.
Patty, how you doing, buddy?
You know what? I'm hanging in there. I'm doing all right.
Not so bad, all things considered, right?
Not so bad, all things considered. I gotta say, after the Indians lost the World Series in '97, it took me a week to get over that and to be able to present myself in public as a composed human being. It was about a day or two, I feel like, this time.
Different circumstances, but we'll talk about that.
Yes, we will. We're going back to the beginning in this final Matty and Patty Cavs podcast. More on that later. We started the podcast with Come On Cavs. It only feels right that we end with it. And another reason it's appropriate, just to go back to that first podcast, we've been sitting on some pretty big news, Matty, this whole podcast run. Huge news. Not 24 hours after our very first podcast, I received an incredible email. Let me read it all to you guys. This was from Rich Buchanan, the Executive Vice President of the NBA. 24 hours after our debut, we got an email from the Executive Vice President of the NBA. It reads as follows. Mr. McMenamin, it has come to the attention of this office that you are using certain intellectual property of the NBA without receiving prior consent. While I am sure this is an honest mistake by you, it is at the same time something that you must correct. To be clear, you do not have permission to use the logo of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Additionally, you do not have permission to use the theme song of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I took the time to listen to your, quote, program. Personally, I found it very amusing, and I think you and, quote, Matty should pursue a future in sports podcasting. In fact, for a first episode, it was very insightful. I thought the, quote, kill list was hilarious. Regrettably, though, I must ask you to cease and desist using the intellectual property of the NBA. Best of luck with your program, and you and Matty should consider sports journalism when you think about a college major. Signed, Rich Buchanan, Executive Vice President, National Basketball Association, enclosure, parentheses, RJ-BD, close parentheses. My instant reaction was, wow, really? No, this has got to be a fake. But I really want this to be real. But I couldn't tell. I'm no lawyer, so I did what anyone else would do. I reached out to our pro bono counsel, the Matty and Cavs Podcast pro bono counsel, Edward Sackman, Esquire, and we just so happened to be have a special guest tonight, this afternoon. Ned joins us live now. Let me get him up on here. Ned, can you hear us? You there?
I am here.
Excellent. Ned, what was your reaction when I forwarded you that email?
I was extremely happy.
It was the best.
It was so great.
I think I might have responded something like, this is the best day of my life, or something like that. I was really happy.
I got real excited for a second. I was just so thrilled. I was like, oh, man, our reach is so vast, but I was also impressed. I'm like, damn, the NBA got like some bots to find this shit? Like, it's not like they're like sitting around listening to random-ass podcasts all over the place. But then upon looking closer, we caught a couple of telltale signs. There's this big message at the top of the email that said, this email was sent via anonymous email service for free. You can remove this text message by being a paid member for $10 a year. Click here. Matt, you also found something, I think, that was a telltale sign this was not genuine.
Yeah, I Googled Rich Buchanan right away just to see what his deal was. There really is a Richard Buchanan who is the lead legal counsel for the NBA. But he is Rick. He's Rick Buchanan. That's how he signs everything, not Rich.
Mm-hmm.
That was a tip-off.
Yeah, big time. And also, NBA-corp.com is not actually a real domain. which is the part of the email address that it was attached to. So, needless to
I think
say,
we've been had.
this was a huge letdown. This was crushing, and we didn't have the heart to even talk about it until now. I mean, mostly because I wanted to figure out a way to get back at them. But Jesus Christ, Matty, we're putting together like 10 goddamn episodes of a podcast. We ain't got time for that shit.
No.
Now the big question, I think, Ned, that we have to come to you for. I mean, you are sort of our consigliere. Who did it? Who pulled this elaborate and excellently conceived prank that had a few fatal flaws?
Sure. So I think, you have to look at who has the motive and who has the means.
I love when that comes to a lawyer. This is great.
As far as motive, our friend Bob Emmerich is a known prankster.
Bobby the Brain. Bobby the Brain is.
And certainly, this is something he could have hatched. One of his past Confederates, Grant James Keating, is also potentially in the mix. And I think when you think about the language in the letter, there was some semi-legitimate lawyer language in the letter. It talked about cease and desist and so on.
Yeah, and I've seen those. I've seen those letters before. I mean, in my job as TV journalism, I get tons of cease and desist for improper fair use of copyrighted material. I've been figuring this whole podcast. One, no one's really listening to it besides our loyal 50 listeners, but also we're not making any money off this, so there's a lot of leeway, I feel like, there. But I saw this. This looked genuine. This is similar to a lot of letters that I see in my job when I use something improperly. Which
leads me to our third suspect, Jeff Versteeg, the vile Stiggy Fins, who, although I don't specifically know him as a prankster, I do know him as a hater.
Yeah.
And, I think the content of the letter matches his fingerprints for two reasons. One, because it does have some of that legal language that you would typically see, but two, because it didn't quite get to the top of the mountain. And if you know Jeff Versteeg, you know that he only completed 2.5 years of law school. And so, I think he's certainly a candidate for this.
Big time. Those are the three that jump to my mind. For other reasons, Stig and Grant, to me, showed unusual levels of interest in this podcast. They offline, obviously they had that awesome correspondent report from Game 4, but they were also early before the finals encouraging us to apply for press credentials. There was a very suspicious level of interest, I thought. But this also, the letter itself, I was rereading it today. It kind of shows the hallmarks of Bobby the Brain Emmerich. Because he in the letter it says, where is it? You should consider a sports journalism. This is a great podcast. It's encouraging us that we could be a future in sports podcasting, right? Rob has very generously, as being a great loyal fan of the podcast, emailed me saying that Matt and I should quit our jobs and actually podcast full time, which Becca and Mimi were thrilled to hear this when we told them our plans to quit our jobs to do this full time. So that it also had that kind of fingerprint on it. I don't know if I put it on all three of them, but they're three prime suspects. If you had to pick one, I'm sure it's more than one. First of all, I think that's guaranteed.
You think it's a cabal?
I think it's a cabal. This is not a one-man job. It could be a one-man job. If it is, it's impressive. That's a lot of dedication and respect. But I think there's at least two people involved. It could be all three. But if there's one person who's guaranteed to be involved, either way, who would you say, guys?
I say Versteeg.
My vote is Rob, who has previously engaged in creating a fake email address for a real person. I believe that was Scott Fuller in the epic rap battle war with Brad Keys. He set up a fake email account.
And Rob does have sort of the tech savvy.
Yes.
Do this sort of thing, so certainly that puts him in the mix. I'll say another candidate, someone who should never be forgotten, is one Brent Lang Fuller, who certainly, I think, has been involved in pranks in the past targeting both of you as well as me.
The pizza under the couch.
Among other things.
Oh, my God.
I'll remind you also that I think Rob, if you think about past pranks, I think he changed the outgoing message on your answering machine.
That's right, he did. I forgot about that.
Heavy breathing. I think your mom was waiting for a call back from a job interview.
Yes, it was something very serious, and my mom got really upset saying, how did this happen?
So, I don't know. I think, you guys are kind of in the situation I was in when I got that bag of shit at work. Which is, at some point, I just
Too many suspects.
Too many suspects.
To this day, is that an unsolved mystery?
It's an unsolved mystery, and I'm just taking it as a sign of a life well lived.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect way to look at it. Yeah, no, we really can't overlook Brent. I have to also add in his favor, he has a suspicious level of interest at all in this podcast.
Right, because he doesn't give a fuck about basketball as far as I know.
Exactly.
No.
But he started listening the last
Not enough white players.
Yeah. You started listening to the last couple of podcasts, but yes, I have to remember, there's only been one member of my friends, one member of the FX Players who's ever been banned from my house, and that was Brent Fuller for the pizza under the couch, which stayed there for like over a month.
His body of work speaks for itself.
It speaks for itself. I'm going to go out on a limb. I think Rob's still the top candidate for all the reasons we mentioned. But I'm going to say a cabal. I'm going to say all three: Stiggy, Grant, and Rob collaborate on this one. That's my vote. That's my vote.
Well, I guess the one thing I would say that suggests it wasn't Rob is you guys haven't heard anything that it was, and he has a big ass mouth. And so if he had done this, if he did, kudos to him for sitting on it for like 3-4 weeks.
Absolutely.
But, I think you probably would have heard about it.
Or somebody would have anyway.
Right. And it would have gotten back to you. So.
All right, now before we let you go, I do want to ask you about one Cavs-related thing.
Sure.
Our buddy, the pariah, Scott Fuller, asked a good question about where this Cavs team ranks in terms of all-time Cleveland teams that you care about and favorite teams kind of stuff. You emailed the rest of our friends, but would love you before you go just to sort of give your take on where this Cavs squad ranks for you and why.
Sure. So for me, these guys are number one, and the reasons are pretty straightforward. I haven't seen a Cleveland team with this much mental toughness in my lifetime. I have seen a lot of Cleveland teams that I liked and I wanted to win very badly, but it just seemed like the other team had the mental edge. But these guys always seem to have that mental edge, and I think it made up for a lot of talent disadvantage once we got down to All-Stars, particularly in the finals. So that's one thing. The second thing is other than the 97 Indians, these guys have gotten as far as anybody. This is the most successful Cavs team of all time, so you got to give them credit for that. And then I like the players. I love Kyrie. I love his game. I was all season long watching, and I can't tell you how many times you'd see him finish something at the rim, and I would just be like, "Come on," It was involuntary. But TT, Smith and Shumpert. Weirdly, I always kind of liked those players even when they were on the Knicks, so I was real happy when they got them. I love Shumpert's high top. I think J.R. Smith is hilarious. I like the players. I think they're mentally tough, and they achieved. And so, yeah, probably they're up there And then I think that late 80s, early 90s Cavs team is second, as a lot of people have identified. But those are my two teams, and these guys have just, it's been a pleasure to watch them and to watch them play so late into the season. I was just happy to get to do that as hard as it was to see them lose.
Yeah. Matt and I will weigh on this as well in a moment, but I think it's a really, really strong take to lead us off, Ned.
Thank you. Well, before I go, let me just add one thing. I think this has been an outstanding run of podcasts you guys have put together.
Thank you.
I commend you both. And I also think that, it's funny, you mentioned Scott Fuller, and Scott, as some of our listeners will know, was for a long time an editor at a paper in Northern Virginia, and certainly was thought of as, kind of the journalist amongst our group of friends. But I think it's high time we recognize who the real journalist is, and that is one Patrick McMenamin.
Oh, right.
Working, I believe, Pat, your first job for John Stossel?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
yes, it
so
was.
Pat's been in this business a long time, and he may not have written articles in a newspaper the way that Scott Fuller did, but he
articles.
I think he he understands.
The boob tube, it's the comedy.
Yeah. I think he understands the business. He understands how to be a broadcaster, and he understands how to prepare and present issues. And so I think he should be commended for that too.
Thank you, Ned. That was very generous. Ned, and special thanks to you, Ned. You are the first fan, the first listener of the podcast by commanding us to do this podcast, since we were annoying you with a million texts that you enjoy but didn't have the time to read.
Yeah, I'm really happy you guys did it. I figured you guys were probably talking on the phone anyway, so you might as well just throw it into a podcast. And I'll make a pitch. It sounds like maybe you guys are going to talk about this later, but I think the podcast should be expanded to perhaps some sort of a Shaker Heights Players podcast that covers other topics, or maybe, I don't know, Pat acts as a host and you have a rotating series of guests. You spread it out so it's not quite as often, but it sticks around. And I think there's a lot of people with interesting takes in our group of friends and listeners who would enjoy getting on the air. So I don't want to steal your thunder if you guys were going to talk about that at all later. But anyway.
Too late. Thunder stolen, Ned. Thanks a lot. No.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'll talk to you.
Hey, Ned. Thanks
buddy.
Ned. Stay with us. That was Ned Sackman, the first listener of the Matty and Patty podcast. We wouldn't be doing this, I think, fair to say.
Fair to say.
If he hadn't been here, hadn't suggested this to us in the first place. Well, Matty, let's move along to the podcast. We indulged quite a bit there with the awesome start, but let's go back here for a second. I mean, let me briefly give the boilerplate here to start off. 20 minutes into the podcast. This is the Matty and Patty Cavs Podcast. By way of introduction, we are two long-suffering and sadly still suffering Cleveland sports fans who spend far too much time watching, reading, and thinking about the Cavs. We are unapologetic homers, but we are self-aware homers with brains. So if you'd like the informed, intelligent Cleveland fans' perspective on all things Cavs, you've come to the right place. And as a public service announcement, the finals are over, so the obscenity amnesty has been waived.
Uh-oh.
I will watch my language, but I cannot promise I will talk any less. And then lastly, as Ned was alluding to, this is the last episode of the Matty and Patty Cavs podcast. It is going to be replaced by the Cleveland Sports Hour with Matty and Patty in the near future.
Ooh.
All Cleveland sports on the day. You like that? Yeah, nice. I like that you're into
that.
Because you're gonna have to do it with me. So I'm glad you like it. All Cleveland sports will be on the table for this podcast. No Star Wars because Matty has no soul and thinks they're childish and is disappointed.
I don't know. These new ones might really be something, Pat.
I am very.
They might finally make chicken salad out of that chicken shit.
In the interest of our friendship, I'm going to overlook that. But maybe other topics, but the main focus is going to be Cleveland sports. If there are tangential things that are related to Cleveland sports, we will talk about it, but that's going to be the main focus, and Matty and Patty will be the center of this podcast universe, and guests will come, much like our friend Ned just joined, as we move on. So let's talk about let's get back into the pain, Matt. Let's
do it. This is our milieu. I feel comfortable with this.
Me too.
All the Warriors fans asked me after the game, "How are you doing? How do you feel?" I said, "This feels very comfortable for me." Yeah,
I said, "I'm all right. And I mean that. Like, I'm all right.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about me. I'm fine." It did take me a day. Like, I was, part of that honestly was more that I had a horrible hangover the day after the game. I did not realize how much I nervously drank at the bar. But when I got home, I decided I needed to get my mind off it, so I played some video games at 2 a.m. On the East Coast. And I was going to have another drink, and I was like, ooh, I do not need another drink.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God, because even without that drink, I was really hungover the next day and was just powering through work. I was like, honestly, the hangover hurts more than the sports pain right now. But no, seriously, I was all right. And we'll talk about why. But let's first talk about LeBron's question. I think what's been amazing to me throughout this series run is how LeBron has sort of, unlike his first go-around, like we projected ourselves onto LeBron, right?
Mm-hmm.
He never really projected back onto us, except when he would say, play up his hometown roots and stuff like that. But it was always kind of uncomfortable, not quite there. It's more about him and less about us and less about Cleveland.
Agreed.
But this time around, he's like taken on the mantle of the fan. Like everything he's going
through. He's found a voice.
Everything he's going through, the Cavs fans have been going through. When Delly was getting, vilified as a goon, as a dirty player, he came out in that press conference and said it better than any Cavs fan could possibly say. Why Delly's not a dirty player. When Blatt was coming under the gun for not playing Mozgov in Game 4, LeBron was the one who came out and said, "Sorry, how would Mozgov have stopped Steph Curry from hitting all those ridiculous threes that were contested?" Because we were up 1 when that started to happen. So, he's nailed all those things. And then, of course, in his final press conference after the game, after we lost, he said, he started to publicly muse whether it would be better to miss the playoffs and lose in the finals because it hurt so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a question that is hitting every fan now. And forgive me, Matt, I'm going to go on a mini monologue here, which is just par for the course.
No, go for it.
But, I mean, this resonates with me, Matty, because I was in a dark place as a Cleveland sports fan a year ago. I stopped caring about the Browns completely. The Tribe had that one good run where they made that one playoff game, 2 years ago, but they were terrible the year after, or disappointing at least. And even the Cavs, who I was loyally watching this whole time, and it was just awful basketball. I would still watch them, and I was starting to be like, yeah, maybe I just need to stop watching and just in a way it was like, for me personally, it was very healthy. I was a human being. I did things. I thought about it. I was productive with my life, but it's just I was in a really bad place, and I remember you being sad about it. Like I think I missed the Zydrunas Ilgauskas jersey retirement because I forgot I was on. I was disappointed in myself because I cared about Z, but I was like, I forgot about it because I wasn't caring about the Cavs anymore. It was just they were so bad and it was so hard to watch. But just think about this. Let's take a walk back. Think about where the Cavs were a year ago this time, right? We were cheering LeBron's defeat. Like we were talking about on the phone. I was so happy, maybe so happy that he got beat so bad. Because and the reason why, of course, was loyalty, Cleveland Cavs loyalty, not because we hate LeBron, for being a good player or because he left us. We hated him because he left us in the way he did, and we were being loyal to our squad. So, we were cheering LeBron's defeat. Chris Grant had been fired. Mike Brown had been fired again. We were in the midst of talking ourselves into Anthony Bennett. Kyrie had an awful year. He was on this.
Bad.
He was bad. You and I were talking legitimately about trading him.
I think we said we would trade him for a top 5 pick in the draft.
I think we did. It's a dark moment.
It seems silly now, but at the time, he was really bad at the end of last year. Didn't look like he had.
Just getting outplayed left and right. And he was on the seemingly sure path out of town anyways. Like, our next LeBron savior, LeBron 2.0 is already going to be leaving just like LeBron 1.0. But then we got the number 1 pick in the draft again, which was ridiculous. Then we got Wiggins. We made the right pick. Although Stiggy might disagree with that, but still, we didn't make a terrible pick. There were the LeBron rumors that were just coming out of nowhere. I came back from vacation with seeing. Then LeBron actually comes home. Then Kevin Love, but then we lose to the Knicks in the opener. LeBron starts to look old. Things look terrible. He spends 2 weeks in Miami, which is weird. We're down 19-20. Season record under 500. Then Dion gets traded for J.R. Shump and Mozgov. Then we go on scorched earth. Then we reach the playoffs. And then Olnick happens. And then J.R. happens. And then the bank shot in the Chicago series. But then the buzzer beater. The Browns buzzer beater. And then TT just dominates. Then JR again. Good JR. Then we're in the finals. And LeBron goes Hulk smash on Golden State. And then we lose. So, Matty, let's it's a long way of saying, or coming around to LeBron's question, is the pain worth it?
Are you asking me right now? Yeah.
No answer. Damn right it's worth it. It's called a dramatic pause, Matt. Thanks.
Sorry
I was
for
an actor
stepping all
too.
over.
Not just a journalist, but an actor. Thank you. Come on. To paraphrase Scott Robb, who's had some excellent stuff out there, he also had a great narrative piece for ESPN, which is worth looking up and Googling. We have something better than that now. We have hope. It doesn't matter whether we're going to win long term or not. We have hope now, and God damn it, right. Hope is better than complete despair.
This is such a much better place to be in. We are the odds-on favorite in Vegas to win the championship next year. Our problems are first world problems rather than the third world problems we've been dealing with for the last 4 years. Basketball terms. It is so much better, Pat. So much better. And even this finals loss, while difficult, still, what an incredible – Ned just talked about why this was his favorite team. They way overperformed. I predicted the Warriors to win this in 5 with a Kyrie at 80%. This is a good Warriors team. I didn't think we had it. We way overperformed that.
Absolutely, and I don't feel any joy that I picked correctly with Warriors in 6. But again, I also picked Warriors in 6 with Kyrie playing at 80% the whole series. And I think honestly, Cavs win in 6 if Kyrie's playing probably. Not for sure. I mean, look, I don't want to take away anything from Golden State. They were really, really good, and we might have lost a lot of those. We still might have lost some of those games. But I don't know. I think it's hard to believe that we would have lost 3 straight if we didn't have to play Dellavedova for 40 minutes a game. Before we get into more specific questions about this Cavs team in its place in history. I want to just quickly go back to I want to get to another letter, Matty. Another letter we received after the last podcast.
Yes.
As you recall, the last podcast we started off with a defiance. It was on the eve of an elimination game. I started the podcast off with a speech from British Prime Minister Winston Churchill's from October of 1941. Never give in. Never give in. Never, never, never. Give them credit, the Cavs never did, but it wasn't enough. I used that speech because my father made me read it after I'd given up hope during a Cavs Bulls playoff game in 1992. He was so calm in my moment of despair. It sort of inspired me, and it was sort of a great teachable moment. But upon hearing the story, Matty, you had a reaction. Can you give it to us and tell us more?
I said, that's rich that your dad was so calm then, because I'm pretty sure I've watched him lose his mind watching a WNBA game.
And upon hearing our podcast, in which my dad did listen to me and finally listened to the podcast, he CC'd you on an email. You care to read it, Matty?
I would love to read this email, Pat. And I begin. Okay, I listened to it today on walks and errands. Some thoughts. 1, I had forgotten about the Cavs Bulls playoff game in my, quote, teaching moment. Thanks for reminding me. 2, I don't recall ever watching a WNBA game, let alone one with Matt. But we Irish don't get mad, we get even. And now I have the name for the pedophile villain in our next novel.
That's too perfect.
Unreal. He goes on to praise your profanity and how much you monopolize the conversation and suggests that after we win the game, the next podcast shall lead with another Churchill speech. The main thing is that I am now going, I guess the pedophile villain in the next historical novel you write with your dad will be named Matt, or maybe even Matt Youngner, if he really wants to get me.
Or it might be just Youngner. He might take the last name.
Could that can upset my entire family?
Yes, exactly. Yes, just so we can fully. Revenge is not best equal. Revenge is best topped and escalated.
No, you got to kill the man and everyone he cares about.
Yeah, exactly. You got to win the next fight, as Ender Wiggins would say.
Right.
When the funny thing is, he's not killing. A lot of the villains in our books tend to be sexual predators of sorts, so it probably will be a pedophile villain. Because what's more evil? What's more evil than sex crimes? I guess. I love you, Dad. That's awesome. So, Matty, let's move on to a question, as we mentioned earlier, that our erstwhile friend Scott Fuller, and I do want to give him I don't want to give him any credit because of how terrible he's been about Cleveland sports all year. But I've always been impressed with his writing, and he has good questions. He has good ideas like this when he's not making terrible hot takes and then clinging to them stubbornly throughout the rest of the playoffs, or rest of the year. He
Let's be honest.
He has no idea
what he's talking about.
He has no frame of reference. He's like a child wandering into the middle of a conversation.
Correct. A stubborn, big-headed, jaundiced child.
He asked us to compare to previous Cleveland teams, not just Cavs teams, but like all Cleveland teams, right? And I think let's before we get it, I want you and I, Matty, to get into this and to explore this. Our good friend and listener Ned Satman has already said that this Cavs team is his favorite Cleveland team of all time. I believe he said Cleveland team. It wasn't just Cavs, was it?
No, Cleveland. All Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland. Yeah, I agree. There are some problems with historical comparisons to begin with, right? Different eras, different styles of play, different media environments. Same problem with trying to compare players from different generations, right?
Different time of your life when you were experiencing it too. That's a big deal.
Yeah, well, that's what I get to in a second too. But I think there's nostalgia, right? Nostalgia is a huge factor in favor of those teams you grew up rooting for. The number I wore as an ultimate frisbee player was number 19. I had a long and pretty decent career. Long. I stopped playing when I got married, around 26, 27.
Yeah, I don't know if either of those things are true.
Probably not. Yeah. Anyway, but the point being, I wore number 19
Short and
as a
mediocre.
co-star. Short and mediocre. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right, fair enough. As I get older, my exploits will become more incredible. I gave a goddamn internal organ to that sport, Matt Youngner. What have you done?
That's true. I've never lost a spleen to anything.
Thank you. Anyway, but the point being, I wore number 19 as a frisbee player because of Bernie Kosar in my 20s. The legends kind of grow with years. But at the same time, I didn't understand football or baseball or basketball then like I do now. Mm-hmm. But also teams now, there's the immediacy. It's easy to place more emotional weight and connection on what just happened and still hurts. And the last thing I think is interesting is social media and the 24/7 media. There's so much more to read and consume. There's so much more we know about these, players. It's so much easier to fall in love with them than say in the 80s. I don't know anything about, Reggie Langhorne like I know about J.R. Smith.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Matt, do you want to kind of like just quickly walk through what teams are kind of on the contention list for favorite Cleveland sports teams of all time?
Sure. So I actually have a number one that's a pretty clear number one for me.
Okay.
Which is the 95 Indians team.
Interesting.
And I think it's still number one. Now, as you said, there's a lot of factors that play into that. And the congruence of events that came together, confluence of events that came together, there is really amazing. decades of the Indians being terrible, and that being a pretty big part of our childhood.
Yep.
Right, going to Municipal Stadium with 10,000 people in the stands and being able to run down any foul ball that went into the stands. Because there's nobody there. The movie Major League existing and being such a favorite of ours because of that history. And then having that turnaround with the opening of a new, beautiful stadium.
Yep.
That we loved, and the Indians becoming very good all of a sudden.
Historically.
Really turning that around. The 94 strike season where they were in contention for the playoffs and everybody was so excited. That was the first year that Jacobs Field opened, and then that being taken from us, just robbed. Yeah. And rather than the usual Cleveland thing happen, they come back the next year. It's just this juggernaut. Such a good lineup. All-stars at almost every position. And players I love. I think Ned pushed back on that team and said there were guys that weren't likable, and specifically cited Albert Bell. Albert Bell is easily my favorite player on that team. I love Albert Bell.
No, absolutely.
Still. Part of that is that I love angry black athletes, as you know, and he is sort of my prototype for that.
Yep.
But I loved all the guys on that team.
Albert Bell, Kenny Lofton, Carlos Baerga, Manny Ramirez,
young Manny,
young Manny, young Jim Thome, Sandy Alomar, Omar Vizquel we traded for, I think, that season, didn't we?
Nah, he was in, I think in 93 we got him.
No, we got him No. We got him mid-season, I'm almost positive. I'll have to look this up. But I'm pretty sure
definitely not in 95, maybe in 94. But
maybe 94, the strike shortened season. That maybe when I feel like the first time he ever joined, he joined mid-season when we were at Jacobs Fields. That's why I think it was 94, maybe, if it was 95. But also El Presidente.
Oh, yeah.
Oral Hershiser. I hate
Chuck
to say it. Chuck Nagy.
Mesa was incredible that year.
He was incredible that year.
Finished third in the MVP voting that year, I'm pretty sure.
And Paul Shuey looked exactly like, Charlie Sheen, I feel like a little bit. He had like a crazy handlebar mustache, or he had kind of same kind of vibe going as Ricky Vaughn.
Yes, Ricky Vaughn had no mustache, Pat. He was clean shaven.
Yeah, that's a good point, but whatever. It was just a white guy who looked like trash, I guess.
At any rate,
I had a fastball.
That team was so much fun. Coming off what they did, they just clobbered people that year. Won 100-plus games in a strike-shortened season. I love that team. I don't know if I'll ever love anything like that again.
Yeah.
We were 16 years old, too. That was incredible. So I think for all those reasons, that's my favorite Cleveland sports team of all time. That said, I think this Cavs team is number 2 for me.
Mm-hmm. Number 2. That is a hard number 2 for you. Okay.
I think so, and that's beating out the late 80s Cavs team.
Yeah, let me walk through some of the teams and place them for me. For me, for the longest time, 1986, 1987 Browns. I lumped them together because the teams didn't change that much between seasons, and I was so young that I can't even remember. But that's what made me a Cleveland sports fan, was those teams. My dad had season tickets. He's had them since 1967. This was the sport he cared most about, so of course, passed on to the son, his enthusiasm. I was, there for the double overtime victory against the Jets. I was there for the drive. But also just looking back, that team was so dominant on defense. The players, Frank Minifield, Hanford Dixon, Clay Matthews, Big Daddy Hairston.
Mm-hmm.
I missed some guys. Mike Johnson, Bubba Baker. There were so many just like monster names that there's no Cleveland defense has really come close since. A couple of them in the early 90s kind of got close, but they didn't have the offense to go with it. That was the thing. We had this plucky offense with Hall of Famer Ozzie Newsome, Reggie Langhorne, Webster Slaughter, my sure-handed white hero, Brian Brennan. Biner and Mack, 2,000-yard running backs. But Brian Brennan was so huge. There were so many guys, so many characters to love in that team. We've never had a football team like it. So that has obviously been a stand-up for me. But, I didn't understand the game back then either. That one stands up there very, very high on my list. I think it's an interesting debate between the '89 Cavs, which had Versteeg's holy assortment of Harper, Price, Doherty, Nance, Elo, and Hot Rod, We had all those guys. We still had Harper. We hadn't made that horrible trade for Danny Ferry. My heart was broken watching them lose to Michael Jordan on that shot. I might put the 92 Cavs on top of it just because they got further. We had some more players that I loved, like Terrell Brandon, Bobby Fields. Kerr was on that team too. So was Ferry, but whatever. But that was such a great team. The 97 Tribe, by the way, don't sell them short.
No, that was a weird one, but a fun one.
Marquise Grissom instead of Lofton. Matt Williams instead of Albert Bell. We had the Alomar brothers, right? Didn't we?
No, Roberto.
No, not yet. You're right, not yet. That was 98. We're still at Sandy Alomar. But Jarrett Wright coming out of nowhere. The High Sox.
Yeah.
Remember they wore the High Sox on Jim Tomey's birthday, had 8 runs in the inning, and just went crazy. There was a game in the World Series they played during a snow flurry.
Yeah.
They won. I mean, that was such a crazy, crazy team. I loved that team so much. It's funny. I actually put them over 95 for me under the Tribe ranking only because I remember having the stupid thought. This is the stupid, I wasn't seasoned enough. You would think the drive, the fumble, and the shot would have seasoned me enough. But 95, I remember thinking after they lost, you know what? It's the first time this team was good. We
thought they were going to
have some. Yeah, forever. I'm like, it's good that they have some heartbreak first. It'll make it feel so much better when we win because we're going to win. And you just now I know better. But 97 came out of nowhere. After 96, the heartbreak of 96, I thought, and we were playing so poorly in 97. I thought, we're screwed. We're done. Albert Bell's gone. I kind of
been traded.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they just caught fire, and that's the fun thing about baseball. As long as your team is hanging around 500, there's a reason to keep watching, because all I have to do is catch fire at the end of the year, and they can win the World Series. That's how baseball runs.
Do you remember Chad OJ from that team, Pat?
Yeah, I was about to say Chad OJ. I forgot about Chad OJ.
I think he would have been MVP if we had won the World Series.
Didn't he have 2 RBI doubles? Didn't he have 2 RBI doubles? And that's
I think he won 2 games and was huge at the plate. It was crazy. Yeah.
Unbelievable. 2 other teams I want to put into consideration. I think the 07 Cavs belong on any all-time team list because we made the finals for the first time in franchise history. That was also a very bizarre, likable team. You had LeBron, you had Z, Big Z. I mean, I had few happier moments than watching LeBron and Z hug after they won the Eastern Conference Finals as a fan.
Yeah.
We had Verjao. We had Boobie, who I always love as a player. We had Larry Hughes. And I wouldn't say that's that's not a mark in the positive. Eric Snow and Ira Newble, who were 2 of the most I've never seen players be so effective and be so terrible at the game of basketball. from almost every aspect except their defense.
Yeah.
Danielle Marshall, Sasha Pavlovich, Drew Gooden, who's still playing NBA.
He was starting for us.
Starting, that's right. He was starting for us, exactly. We made offense out of 15-foot jumpers from him. Pick and pop 15-foot baseline jumpers. It was crazy. So that team definitely is up there. And also, I still think 2007 Tribe belongs in the conversation.
Yeah, they would have won the World Series if they hadn't blown that.
They would have won the World Series if they hadn't blown a 3-1 series lead.
That was a fun team.
I've never had a team of guys that were that likable.
Yeah.
They were all good dudes. Victor Martinez, Jahani, Grady Sizemore, Pronk, Lofton. Lofton came back for that season.
Oh, yeah.
Cece, Fausto, as he was called then. Paul Burr with the double clutch, old school pitching. Rafael Betancourt just throwing straight fastballs on the outside corner. Winning games despite a closer whose nickname was Blosevsky.
That was a fun team.
So anyways, those are all the teams to me that I think – go ahead.
Okay, interestingly, not on your list is the 66 and whatever we won the next year, 62, when the 08, 09, 09, 10 Cavs teams that were world beaters and flamed out.
Yeah. I didn't put them on because, honestly, I think I probably put these teams ahead of them only because the way they lost was so crushingly disappointing. It didn't give it's a different feeling for a Cavs fan, I feel like, when you're expecting to do well. It's like the 96 Tribe team wasn't on my list, even though they were great almost all year, right? because we just choked so spectacularly in '96. They wouldn't be on my list. Would they be on your list?
No.
I mean, there's a defiance of this team was better than everyone gave us credit for. They kept just dumping on that team after LeBron left, and I thought that was bullshit. But I had a hard time loving them because they had some flaws and they never overcame them, and we had the expectation of making the finals. Like anything less than the finals was a disappointment and a failure, and so that's what it was.
Except I think that's I think you're seeing that in retrospect now. Coming into the 08-09 season, we'd fought the Celtics pretty well in the semifinals the year before, but expectations weren't that high. What do we really add? Mo Williams, Delonte, Wally Zerbiak,
Wally,
Ben Wallace. And that team was awesome that year. They were so good, man. I know it's all a bad taste in our mouths, and it's all sort of been ruined by how they lost and then how LeBron left. But those teams were incredible.
Mm-hmm. You know, I agree. They're definitely up there, but for me, they're probably 8 and 9 if we're going to do a top 10, right?
Okay.
Or actually,
sure. I agree. It's how it's what happened matters.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, they would be 9 and 10. They would round out my top 10. I say that because I'm pushing this year's Cavs into the top 10, so that would be 10 teams. So for me, Matty, for the longest time, the 86-87 Browns have been my touchstone, my North Star for Cleveland sports teams. I'm going to side with Ned. This Cavs team is now my favorite team of all time. Just because of the way they personified the experience of being a Cleveland fan. Mm-hmm. They captured every storyline, and the way that LeBron, as I said earlier, kind of personified the Cavs fan. What he was experiencing, we all experienced, in a way that never had happened before. Which is strange for me because the Browns, I've always been a Browns, Cavs, then Tribe fan. If I had to rank my emotions, you've always been more of Cavs, Browns, Tribe. I feel like, or maybe Cavs, Tribe, Browns. I'm not sure.
Cavs, Tribe, Browns. Yeah.
So we're sort of opposite in that. But this Cavs team is too compelling. And maybe the time distance also matters here. But they're the number one on my hearts now for what they did this season and what they could have been. The potential 2 on top of that, I think that factors into it.
Yeah, it was an awesome run, man.
Yeah, it was a beautiful run, and let me play. I think Gene Hackman and Hoosiers can sum up how I feel about this team.
Can he?
I don't know if you could hear that.
I could
not. No, well, he said, "I love you guys." He's whispering too hard, but I love you guys. That's his pregame speech for the championship game. He just looks at all of them in the eyes and just said, "I love you guys." That's sort of how I feel about these guys. All right, Matty. We are indulging to the extreme. Clearly, I challenged you before this podcast that if you don't want me to monopolize conversation and talk for 80% of the podcast, it's hard, right?
It's hard to stop you, Pat.
You got to interrupt me. You got to jump in and tell me. You got to be more forceful. Just put me in my place. Tell me to stop talking.
All right, Pat. Let's move on to the next topic.
Yes, thank you. Good. That's what I need from you. Let's briefly, before we move on to the offseason, I want to spend, we're already almost we're like 50 minutes into this podcast, and I want to spend a lot of time on the offseason. So let's move quickly through some NBA Finals fallout. Yeah, let's move quickly through this stuff. Speed round, lightning round, Matty. Let's start with what the ref.
Oh, God damn it.
What the ref in that last game? To me, I call it like there's new, they say the Jordan rules on calls. It's now the exact opposite. It's Mozgov and LeBron rules. LeBron rules, which normally a foul isn't a foul driving the basket if LeBron is being hit.
Yep.
Because he's so big. Likewise, one way if we have one advantage, we had one advantage in this series, Matty, which was the height advantage, right? Size.
Yeah.
A way to eliminate that single advantage that you have.
I think it's let the Warriors hack as much as they want inside and don't call a thing.
Yeah, and he would fumble the ball. Usually, they hack whatever, and it's a turnover. They go, okay, well, now it's a foul. All right, fine. Yeah, now I'll call it. And I get that. I get the letting them play, but if it leads to a turnover, you don't reward the foul. But they rewarded the foul constantly. I mean, I feel like at least 3 turnovers from Mozgov in the paint were just huge hacks across both arms.
They were allowed to do whatever they
him,
wanted. The one that I mentioned to you that made me so mad was a momentum changer in Game 6. Cavs had cut it to 7. Warriors come down. I think Thompson misses a jump shot. And Draymond Green pokes out the offensive rebound to Curry. It's a 3.
Yep.
And on the replay, you can very clearly show Mozgov getting ready to grab the board and Draymond Green just hanging all over his right arm, preventing him from getting his arm up to grab it. That stuff is going on constantly. We've gone over ad nauseum, moving picks.
Yeah, just continued
unabated. The guy I recommend following on this stuff with the refs is Haralabab Vulgaris.
I'm doing this right now. How do you spell it?
Haralabab, Haralabab, Haralabob. Goes by Bob.
Got it. Haralabos Vulgaris.
Yeah, he's a professional gambler. He gambles on the NBA. And
awesome.
And he is a really good critic of the refs.
Added.
A pretty straight shooter and pretty objective if you're looking for somebody to just give you an honest evaluation of what's going on in a game. Although sometimes he has money on the game. He'll lose his objectivity.
Right.
But he was great. So, for instance, from our perspective, Pat, he called out that moving pick by Iguodala that Shumpert got called.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that is unbelievable. Like, it's gotten this is how egregious the illegal picks have gotten. It's now illegal to fight through an illegal screen.
Yeah,
just fucking unreal.
He's a straight shooter about that, and he knows all the refs where he's just like, this guy's terrible. So Crawford, he knows. Foster, he knows.
Oh my God, those guys are just the worst. It's unfucking believable.
Yeah, he's a good follow for that. Some interesting stuff on strategy too.
Next up, let's do a quick visit to the kill list. Draymond Green is the top of my kill list 1,000 times.
With a bullet.
If I can put him I can put 1,000 places ahead of anybody else.
Yeah, he won.
Especially for, as you may have heard, he at the Golden State celebration on Friday, on top of him being a buster, right? On top of him being a phony tough guy who isn't actually tough, just screams a lot and brags a lot when things go well and gets real awful quiet when he starts being terrible. Yeah. And one small thing goes right for him and he just acts like he just, is the champion of the world. He drunkenly ripped the Cavaliers unprompted at the celebration. On the one hand, you can say there's some humor value in here that he was like really drunk and watching Klay Thompson get really uncomfortable standing near him as he's ripping on the Cavs unprompted.
Cavs
suck. Did they make it here? Nope. Just weird, and he just wandered off stage.
Class act, Draymond.
Class act. It's a good thing. It's good that Golden State's really handling this winning thing well.
Yeah.
Boy, they certainly go into the next season as the number 1 hated team on my list. And also,
for sure.
Can we drop the Cinderella media public blowjob of this team of like how wonderful, what a happy story they are? Can we not just say that they're kind of a bunch of assholes? They're a really unlikable team now that they've won, for sure. I mean, they were unlikable beforehand if you were paying attention. Now that they've won, I kind of am hoping we can finally get over this joy fest we have with this team of really unlikable assholes. With the exception of, I'm trying to think of guys that I think are really good that I respect. I mean, Iguodala. Livingston for sure. Iguodala, by the way, who was on the floor for like 5 minutes during Game 6 because he got really hurt. I didn't see him making jokes about pretending to be hurt after that. No. So that kind of still knocked him down. Livingston's probably the most respectful guy. I don't know. It's hard. I don't have anything with that. But let's move on quickly to I think probably the most important storyline that came out of the finals is the David Blatt storyline. Matt, give me just to recap. He's been criticized at the end of the season for not playing Matrix enough, for not playing at all, for not playing Mozgov enough, even though Mozgov was just getting obliterated because we were giving them practice shots because he really couldn't even keep within 10 feet of them. And that was the best we could do with the roster we had. And then on top of that, a Mark Stein article came out, I think 2 days ago, yesterday maybe, detailing how LeBron was disrespectful to Blatt throughout the postseason and the finals. And look, Mark Stein's a really respected reporter. I don't doubt what he saw at all. I quibble with the moral interpretation he took on it.
Well,
but Matty, what's your take on this whole thing?
I have another big issue with Stein, which is it feels like when the refs call a foul after they watch the ball not go into the basket.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
So I have a sneaking suspicion that if the Cavs had won this series, that article would not have appeared. And in fact, a version of it would have come out that would have been like, what an amazing coach, and what an ability to find a partnership with LeBron, where LeBron can criticize players and make his voice heard, and that's incorporated, and it's all a system that works together, and Blatt's able to subsume his ego and do all this crap. And it just felt so disingenuous. If you felt that way in receiving, I didn't see Mark tweet any of that.
Never, not once during the series.
Not one word about it. And then it comes out. It just felt
cheap,
disingenuous, and beneath him.
Yeah, and I think the moralizing he put on top of that, I wouldn't say he wasn't a moral scold. That's exactly what he was. He was calling him out for unprofessional behavior. Which, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not on the sidelines. I wasn't on the sidelines to watch the interactions. I haven't seen video of it. I wasn't on the sidelines for the interaction between Kobe and Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson, any great player who was an alpha dog and their coach. I have a hard time believing that Michael Jordan didn't overrule shit as imperiously as LeBron did. He relates better to Ty Lue because Ty Lue is a player. I get that's why he has a connection with the players. But everything I've seen from LeBron, I keep saying, where's the public, endorsement? He publicly endorsed him like several times in the finals.
Yeah.
By name. Yes. He and the players frequently say, our coaching staff. I think that's coming from Blatt too. Blatt does nothing but praise his fellow coaches, praising Ty Lue and defending him when he was taking heat for trying to undermine Blatt. And then more importantly, I forget who pointed this out. But bottom line, they fucking wonder together. Who gives a shit if they are treating each other well or not?
Yeah.
The Yankees dynasty of the 70s was famously hated each other, right? And I don't even think this gets even remotely close to that level of angst and disagreement or even lack of respect.
They're just not buddies.
Yeah, there's clearly respect there. There's disagreement, and Blatt is a smart coach who says, "All right, LeBron's telling me he doesn't want this play. I'll write him something else up." He's not. Yeah, and I think that's the smart move as a coach. I don't think you say, "No, LeBron, I'm the coach. You're the player. Do that." No, you don't do that. No coach should do that. I don't even think Pop should really do that, honestly.
No, this feels like a whole lot of nothing to me. And the press conference with Griffin and Blatt 2 days ago suggests the same.
Yeah, and God bless Griffin, who's just, by the way, we haven't talked about him much in this podcast, but the whole reason we're having this kind of a podcast, honestly, because we even said we'll do the podcast if the Cavs kind of are able to close it out against the Bulls. Then there'll be something to talk about. We'll do this. He's kind of the whole reason, one of the biggest reasons we are doing a podcast. We barely talk about him. He built this team. I mean, yes, it starts with LeBron coming home, but then he did everything else. And honestly, LeBron coming home would have been a sad ending if he hadn't made that Dion trade. So I loved how he's defended guys, how frank he is. He feels like someone that I just can relate to. The way he talks about the Cavs, he's a real fan. He's a great guy, and frankly got kind of robbed for Executive of the Year. Who won? Was it the Hawks guy?
Danny
Who won
Ferry?
Executive of the Year? Not Danny Ferry. Oh yeah, it wouldn't have been Danny Ferry. It would have been what was it? Who was it? Who won?
I think it was Golden State.
Golden State's, yeah. Which again is sort of not really they didn't really change players that much. They had a good coach. It's sort of it's almost like backwards. It probably should have been Stuart Kerr that won the Coach of the Year, and Atlanta Hawks that won the. Anyway, either way, he got robbed because of the LeBron factor. He's been fantastic all year. All right, Matty, we are an hour into the podcast.
I want to add one thing very quickly, Pat.
Go ahead. You can always.
Which is a little callback to the kill list. I think Zach Lowe kept making this point. Zach Lowe kept making this point that there's no asterisk on this championship, right? And there's no real asterisks historically, right? Once a team wins, they won, and everybody sort of credits them with that. That may be true, but this Warriors team had a chance in a lot of people's estimations to go down as one of the greatest teams of all time, and I think that ship sailed in this finals against the Cavs.
Gone.
Right?
Yep. I mean, they I don't think it's not salvageable for them. I think, honestly, if they were to actually repeat next year somehow, that would burnish their first, title run. It would validate it a little bit.
Agreed.
I think we can say that they don't deserve an asterisk. This was clearly the best team, given our injuries, certainly at this point. And you cannot blame Golden State for being teams with injuries. That's what they're supposed to do, right? And they won 3 straight to close out the series. So even though it was a 6-game series and it should have been probably a sweep, they still won. All that being said, Golden State, I think, kind of does still have an asterisk. Like, I agree they shouldn't have one, but they do. The bottom line is they do. It's there. It's not fair that it's there. I think it's not fair that they have an asterisk, but it will be.
I think it is fair.
Fair. Okay, fair enough. I don't think they deserve it, but I'm fine feeling it. And also, it's true. Nevertheless, regardless of whether they deserve it or not, the point is it is there because they beat a team that was missing 2 of its top 3 players. And if you try and put the same
struggled
on
to
them,
beat a team.
Yeah. Put it this way. You struggle to beat a team that they would not have beaten with those 2 guys out if they had been missing Klay Thompson and Iguodala. Right? Or whatever. Take any 2 of the top 3
Thompson
players.
and Green.
Take Thompson and Green out. They don't win that series.
No.
Take any combination of those. Keep Curry, their best player, just like we had our best player, LeBron, and take any 2 players off that roster. Well, not any 2, but any 2 of their top 5, honestly, and they don't win that series. Yeah. I think that's pretty fair to say. It would have been whether we with our full squad would have won that series. I think we would have, but I don't think that's a foregone conclusion. I don't think you can say for sure we would have won that series, but I think we probably would have. It's hard to argue against that. Okay, Matty, if you are done, let's turn the page.
Let's move.
Ready? Let's turn the page. The season 2014-2015, LeBron's coming home season. He's home now. He's firmly home now. It's in the books. Let's talk about this offseason. No chance it can be anywhere nearly as entertaining as last year's offseason.
I sort of hope it's not.
Yeah. But in many ways, this is crucial because, we have a real chance to fill some holes here. Even though you might think, holy shit, we have to re-sign like everybody and we're going to be over the cap like crazy. How are we going to do it? Let's go through bit by bit. Now, let's start with the draft, which is coming up next week. It's coming up fast.
Thursday.
Before we even talk about if there's anyone you're looking at, because neither of us had time. I think no Cavs fans, except for the professionals at WFNY and Fear the Sword and Cavs the blog, have had time to really investigate who might be available at the 24th pick in the draft. What do you want to do with that pick? We can't trade it per se, right? Because we already traded either next year's pick, I think. So
that's
the Stepien rules. Stepien rules, named for the Cavs owner.
Stepien, Pat.
Stepien. I always say Stepien, but that's what I do. I mispronounce things.
You're a man.
The Stepien rules, we can't trade the pick, but we can trade it after we make the pick. So we can make these sort of handshake deals or whatever. I don't know how the rules work, whether we can do it in writing, but we can basically agree to pick a player for another team. So in essence, we can still trade it. We can still trade the pick, but it might get scuttled by who's available kind of thing. So what do you want to do with this pick, Matt? Do you want to trade it or keep it?
I'm sort of mixed here. The trade depends on what we get for it. There's certainly value in locking up somebody relatively cheap, especially if we think we can get the kind of guy I'm thinking about is ready to play right away, which means a 3 or 4 year college player. Ideally, somebody that I think a wing. Decent 3-point shooter, good defense,
multiple
good
positions,
athlete, all that stuff. I don't know who that is because you said we haven't been following it closely enough.
Right.
The only thing is, I can't remember exactly what first round salaries are, but they're not quite as cheap as we might like them to be.
Like $1 million, yeah.
Even a little more than that, I think.
Yeah, it's just over $1 million a year, which with our cap situation is not nothing.
Right, that's really $3 million a year, $4 million a year with penalties.
Right.
So still though, we need to add cheap talent where we can, and the draft is certainly the way to do that. That said, if we can package it with, as the rumors are saying, the Haywood contract, and get somebody that we are more confident can help right away.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm in favor of that.
Right. Yeah, I would not be opposed to it. I'm happy with doing anything with this pick. And I hate to say I implicitly trust Griffin because I once said that about Grant too.
Yeah.
But I kind of trust him to make the right call in terms of value versus cap space. Because yeah, as you said, it's not great. It's not a cheap contract. It's not a league veteran minimum. But one of our biggest holes, we have two big holes right on the roster, which is another guard. Not to replace Dele outright, but you like him, Dele to be a luxury third option who will probably still get playing time even if he was third string. I think he'd still get playing time, just to give Kyrie more rest, right? But you also need somebody, a defensive wing who can hit the three to sort of spell LeBron and play in that like 3-4 kind of role to be able to mix and match, to be able to match up against their guys. So I like the idea of drafting a guy like that because there's a couple of decent guys. I just did some very, crash research before we started the podcast on guys who might be available at that spot. And I like the idea of getting a guy like that because you got them locked in. Still, it's a very favorable rookie contract, right? And depending on what you do with the rest of the guys, it might be a real long-term solution. Whereas I just don't see that out there in free agency. But I also haven't done the research on free agency to tell myself, there's no Thabo Sefolosha-like guy that we can get through trade. I feel like. That I'm aware of, but that's why I'm not a GM. But yeah, if we got somebody like of that caliber starting right now, starting worthy, who can fill all those roles, absolutely sign him up right now. I want him, right? But if we can't find that, I'm totally happy with us drafting someone. And names to look out for, I think Matty, just scanning through Fear the Swords, excellent sort of review of this stuff. I think Jonathan Holmes might be the guy. He's a forward from Texas. He can play the 3 and the 4. He only hit 33% of threes, but that's not terrible. And if you get him to focus on that stuff, he seems like he has a good shot mechanics in general, from what I'm reading. And there's a good chance he improves upon that and gets to be like a 37% three-point shooter, which is great. It's what we need if he can play good defense, which he's mainly known for. Otherwise, Justin Anderson is better shooter, but not quite as good on defense. He's a small forward from Virginia. The other guy that might be out of our range is Rondé Hollis-Jefferson from Arizona. He's awesome on defense.
Yeah, that's the one I've seen.
But terrible shooter, like really bad shooter. I mean, not like Tristan Thompson bad, but you can't count on him being a reliable 3-point shooter. It's almost like it's the Goldilocks thing here, right? Rondé is the best on defense, terrible shooter. Justin's the best on offense, but not great defense. Jonathan Holmes is somewhere in between. So those are 3 names to look for if we end up keeping the pick. I think if we pick one of those 3 guys, it's likely that we're going to keep them. Because I bet we're picking something. We're picking another player for somebody else if we're going to trade that pick. Let's move on to the salary cap situation. It's hard. It's confusing. You and I were talking about places to go. WFNY has a fantastic piece from Jacob Rosen, which breaks down everything you need to know about the Cavs and future salaries and the salary cap situation. There's also a good piece that you point out to me on Cavs the blog. It's currently the first entry right now by Nate Smith, the road forward. That's a worthwhile read. But the thing is, it's weird. We're almost certainly going to be paying a near record tax bill next year.
Yes.
Because we're going to try and re-sign everybody. Which is what they seem to be saying, and I think it's what we should be doing. We'll talk about the details of that bit by bit. But the reason why we can do that next year is the year after the huge salary cap jump means we won't be that far over the salary cap, most likely. Might even be close, and might even with a few creative moves be able to get under the salary cap if we want to avoid the triple repeater tax. Although I'm not sure how we missed that because I think we counted it again. We paid the tax this year by a little bit.
Did we?
And if I read that somewhere. I think in this piece from WFNY that we kind of actually technically went a little bit over the salary cap. But if we didn't, then we have.
But you can go over the cap and not be in the luxury tax, though.
Oh, okay, that's what it is. Okay, so we're in the tax, not in the luxury tax. Next year we'll be in the luxury tax, so we can do it 2 years in a row. What you want to avoid is that third year in a row, because then like you just get hamstrung. You get less money you can offer to free agents. You get it just makes it much more difficult to make adjustments to your team, and we'll be in danger zone there. So I think Griffin's whole strategy has to be and this was great about having an owner like Dan Gilbert, spend the shit out of whatever you want. So don't worry about too much contracts over the next 2 years. I think Matt, that's the message I think for our listeners, right? Don't worry too much about huge numbers in the next 2 years on contracts, right? We can pay that and afford that shit now. It's the third year that hopefully we can negotiate the numbers to be at a range that will get us under the cap in the what season, right? The 2017 season. Yeah, if we can get under the cap that year, we avoid the repeater tax and we maintain flexibility going forward. So that's the thing to think about, I think, going forward. Any other thoughts about the salary cap?
I am once again very thankful that we seem to have an owner that's willing to spend money.
Yeah, makes everything possible. All right, I promise I'm going to stop talking so much. I'm going to cede the floor to you on the Kevin Love issue. Right? Let's start off. The questions are: do you offer the max? Duh. But still, to explain why and what kind of deal do you offer? Talk about the obstacles to the sign and trade, and whether we might be better off trading him somehow for several elite role players as opposed to one ball dominant big three.
Sure. So it seems to me like there's 3-4 options with Love, right? One is he opts into his contract and we have him next year, 1 more year.
Mm-hmm.
That seems unlikely, according to everything that I've read.
Me too.
So if he doesn't do that, then he opts out. And he could conceivably do what LeBron did this year, which is sign a 1 year with a second-year player option,
Mm-hmm.
and just essentially punt this year and make the decision next year when the salary cap's supposed to be higher.
Yeah, I think that is the most likely outcome, but not at all preordained. But go ahead.
And then there is we sign him he opts out and we sign him to a max contract.
Yeah.
With the addendum there that it's possible that could be a sign and trade.
Mm-hmm. Although I thought we were limited to an extent on sign and trade deals, but maybe that's my misunderstanding of
no, I think we all are sort of limited there. I'm not quite 100% sure how that stuff works, but I don't think those are off the table.
Mm-hmm. Because you hear a lot of chatter of the Kevin Love sign and trade for LaMarcus Aldridge, which I don't think that Portland would do, but
I don't think that seems fantastical to me.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think either side's into that. I mean, what's tough about a sign-in and trade for us is Love would obviously have a lot of influence over where he would get traded.
Yeah, exactly.
And that limits the packages that we could get in return. So rather than going out and finding what the market thinks he's worth, like conceivably we would be doing with the Haywood contract.
Right.
We're limited to whatever it is, 3 or 4 teams. The Lakers, Houston, whatever. I don't know where he really wants to go.
Right. Well, that's the other appeal to Portland. Everyone says because he's close to home.
Right.
But I still think that's not I don't think that's a realistic scenario.
No, he really dug himself a hole with saying that he wanted to come back to Cleveland towards the end of the season. Yeah. I don't think he did that and didn't mean it. I know Zach Lowe's and other sports writers are telling us not to believe anything that we hear there, but he really went far in that direction to walk it back now.
He certainly went further than he needed to.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I am not freaked out by him wearing a Yankees cap at the game.
No, neither am I.
2 days ago.
Yeah.
That means nothing.
Agreed.
So I think I agree with you. I think the most likely is an opt-out and a sign-in for 1 year with a player option, and then bank it. The reason he wouldn't do that, I guess, is that he's just worried about his own health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's why I don't rule out him signing a max deal right now. I think in many ways that would be smart for him. Yeah, you're leaving money on the table, but you got to be worried about injury again. At the same time, I think it's still the smartest move for him. If I was him, I would sign a 1 year deal and cash in next year.
Yeah, I think that's right. The last question about do we sign him versus a bunch of smaller pieces?
Yeah.
I get what Lo is saying there, right? But I think that stars are still so valuable in the NBA that it is worth hanging on to them versus those other pieces, especially because I don't know exactly what those other pieces would be.
Yeah, and let's not overreact to the part of this is an overreaction to the Golden State model, and that happens every year, right? When whoever wins the championship is the new model, right? And everyone tries to copy them. And frankly, while Golden State didn't have a lot of huge stars after Klay Thompson and Curry, they also got really lucky. The asterisk plays in here. They didn't beat a star-studded team, right?
And also, they're in a very unique situation where they're paying their best player peanuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of his balky ankles from early in his career, they're paying him what 60% of what he should be making.
Yeah, it's like $10 million, I think, right now, right? Crazy.
Right.
Someone's about to get that kind of money.
Right. It's absurd.
Yeah. If we had to trade him, though, if we had to make a deal for him somehow, what kind of deals would you look at? Our friend Dave Deming had a suggestion. What was the suggestion again? Do you have it in front of you?
It was to Houston with Ariza as the big piece, and then some combination of other salaries. That's monthly units. We'd have to see what would work.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find it here.
I don't think that's a terrible.
No, I mean, I would rather have Love.
Right.
Yeah, he said, what if the Rockets offered Ariza and another piece like Beverly, Donatas, Terrence Jones in a sign and trade? He says, I'm doing that deal. Ariza fits this team perfectly, and the salaries come close to working. It's true. Ariza does fill that role of plug-in defender who can defend multiple positions and also knock down threes.
Oh yeah.
I just don't like Ariza as a player. I don't know why. I don't trust him as a 3-point shooter, even though he's been kind of pretty consistent over the last couple of years of being able to hit them.
Very good.
I'm never afraid of him. So that's sort of my unanalytical. I just don't like him attitude. But I recognize on paper through pure reason that does make sense as a deal. But again, would you rather have Love?
I would rather have Love.
Yeah, I think I would too. Because I also think we're trading him now. We're making this deal right now with how he played last year, and I think part of that was scheme. Part of that was us not using him properly, as everyone says. And I think one, that changes a little bit in year two, and two, I think he also plays better. I think he was hurt all year. He was hurt all year. I don't think he was playing 100%. I think we're about to see oh shit, this is the guy. Boy, we were shitting on him and really shouldn't have been, because I feel like he has. I feel like he's got a better chance to thrive in this LeBron and Kyrie dominant fit system than Bosh ever did. Because Bosh only late in his career, late in his Heat tenure, developed that 3-point range. He's still not as good a 3-point shooter as Love is.
No,
so
absolutely.
I am super excited to have Love back and to start shutting the fuck up. I apologize, Sanity. Shutting up the naysayers who've been talking about Love not fitting with the Cavs and us wasting him and yada 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 yada.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's talk about the Haywood contract, Matty. Unless you want anything else you want to say about Kevin Love before we move on.
No, let's keep going.
The Haywood contract is a big deal. There's two options, right? We can trade it to a team that wants cap relief, or we can use it for cap relief ourselves because we are, up against the cap relief this year. What do you think about that decision, and what kind of players do you think we can get for it?
So we 100% should trade it. because of the escalator in it. I don't think the relief means as much to us as it would to somebody else. Like it escalates to $10 million that you can then cut off your books, but that wouldn't allow us to add any pieces.
And also, and on top of that, Matty, it doesn't matter that we're going over the salary cap this year. We're over anyways. 1, 2, we have an owner that's willing to spend this year, and 3, we don't have to really worry about getting under the cap until 3 years from now in 17. Right. So just remember that. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I think trading it gives us the most value. And we are looking for a team that is interested in cutting salary and a player that is probably overpaid right now. But is a good player, right? So that, like, if you don't worry about the contract. You'd like to have him on the team.
Right.
And we can eat that salary. We have the space and willingness to do so. So in that Cavs the Blog article, the names he rolls out are Channing Frye, Courtney Lee, Rivas Vasquez, Jarek Jack, Kevin Martin, Marvin Williams, PJ Tucker, Avery Bradley, Nelson Chandler, OJ Mayo, Eric Gordon.
Ooh, Eric Gordon. Nah, I don't know how I feel about him. But
right, I mean, that's what you're looking at, though, is a guy that normally you'd be like, he's overpaid. And we just have to say, well, it's fine that he's overpaid. He's going to bring value to us. And I don't have a particular guy that I'm eyeing right now. And I think this is where Griffin's going to earn his money, right, is ferreting out the best deal here and perhaps using our pick as a little added incentive on it.
Yeah, this is the fun season. This is where it becomes fun again to start following Cavs Twitter when you start seeing those crazy rumors coming in about who we might be shopping. Because the rumor is, guys, if you haven't heard, Griffin is talking about shopping both Haywood by itself, the 24th pick in the NBA draft by itself, and those two together to get another piece to fill that guard role and that forward, that Swiss Army knife forward role that we're looking for, right? There's the two big holes we have to fill on top of re-signing everyone, and so that's the thing to look for him to try and target in this trade. I mean, ideally, it'd be amazing if we could draft for one need and use the Haywood contract for another, or be able to flip them both for two players. That'd be amazing. But even if we get one of those things, that will be a huge step up. Maybe we can use our whatever our exceptions that we have left are to sign someone decent.
Sure, and I think that we'll still be able to get those veterans championship hunting guys.
Yeah, exactly.
That were in Marion and Miller this year that didn't really work out, but still.
But worked out for what's his name?
James
Jones. James Jones. Let's talk about it just briefly. I mean, James Jones, man, nice. He was doing nothing for the past 2 years, and all of a sudden he was way more useful than Mike Miller and Sean Marion because he could knock down threes reliably. And more importantly, he was better at guarding the bigger, taller guys. He was better at pretending to be Kevin Love than Mike Miller could be, right?
Yeah, although he got abused on the board, I think.
Of course he did. That's what he was pretending to be Kevin Love. You know, that's my point. Like, he didn't do a good job at it because he can't physically. But I thought, given who he actually is in reality, I thought he did an okay.
He pretended okay.
He pretended okay, so we could have the same dynamic on the court. You know, we didn't have the same results or execution, but we still had the same, I think, floor spacing on offense. And he didn't get so punished on defense that it wasn't worth it on offense. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's what was nice about him, and that's why I give Blatt a lot of credit. That was against the grain move to put James Jones way ahead of Miller in the rotation. And he clearly was loyal to Miller. He liked Miller a lot. He tried him in that game one against the Bulls without J.R. Smith, and never went to it again. So good on Blatt. All right, moving on from the Haywood contract. I agree. Oh, by the way, I agree with you. About not using it for cap relief. We have to trade that contract. The WFNY author, who I've already forgot, I apologize. I'm looking it up again. Jacob Rosen. Jacob Rosen makes a case for sometimes you just got to let that thing expire. It's okay. It's still good. You know, I'm like, yeah, you're not getting nearly the bang for your buck.
No, this is not the time for us to worry about salary cap savings.
That's the point. Salary cap savings are meaningless this year and kind of next year, unless it gets us under the cap for some reason. We have no way of getting under the cap this year. It's just not going to happen. Next year it might, but Hayward's contract doesn't help us next year, so we got to get rid of that. TT, he was amazing this year. We joked about and talked about and got, there was some debate earlier in our podcast about whether he deserves a max offer. I have a question for you, Matty. One, do we offer the max? Or two, if he gets a max offer from somebody else, do you match it?
Yeah, this is hard because I think we started, as great as TT was against the Hawks and the Bulls, you started to see some of his weaknesses against the Warriors, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like he cannot.
His limitations,
He's got pretty severe limitations, offensively, obviously, and even a little bit of defensive rebounding. He tends to lose his man a little bit. And that could get better, and he's still getting better. He's not a max player, though.
Yeah. And a lot of that might have been exhaustion, mental exhaustion from the minute load that he hadn't been playing all year.
Definitely possible.
He just didn't seem to have the same relentless energy in the finals that I remembered seeing in the last two series.
Right.
And part of that might have been scheming. Like, I'm not a good enough a basketball watcher to be able to tell what Golden State was doing to him. But they were doing something. So, but still. Anyway, I agree, especially with the offensive limitations. He's not a max player. But what if someone offers him the max? What do you do? So you and I both agree we're not going to offer him the max. We try and sign him for less than the max.
Yeah, absolutely.
But do you match a max offer if some crazy teams offers it to him?
Dear God. So this is going to take me on a little bit of a tangent, Pat.
Go for it.
But I think you do because of LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we have LeBron on our rundown here, but this is this is a critical moment. So that's my tangent. This is a critical moment for him and his relationship with his team.
Mm-hmm.
If he is serious about being in Cleveland, and I think he is, and serious about being a leader of this team, and to this point I think he is, he cannot screw around this offseason and do. I'm sure you've read Windhorst talking about how he's sort of passive aggressive in his approach.
Mm-hmm.
Just like will go off the radar and calls and sort of let the team guess about what his preferences might be.
Mm-hmm.
He cannot do that.
Yeah,
he's got to step up from day one and say, "This is what I'm doing. This is how I feel about these players."
Recruit. Yeah, if you want to win next year, if you want to have more bullets in the chamber when guys start falling down, you got to start now.
Right. So when somebody goes and offers him PT the max,
mm-hmm.
we have to be like, Jesus, is this really worth it? We need to weigh what LeBron thinks. He needs to take the call from Griffin and have that conversation.
Yeah, agreed.
Right? Like that is a big part of being a leader. And I don't know. Windhorst is sort of positive in that that's how he uses his power.
Mm-hmm.
This threat that he's going to leave or do something, he can't do that crap. He
He
has power. He can just say what he thinks.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he can use that power by telling them what he thinks, right?
Yes. He has power.
And I think that's different because, look, in 2010, he didn't know where he was going to go. His main focus.
Well, I think he did know where he was going to go, and that was one of the issues. He didn't say anything.
That's true. So there was nothing in it for him to help.
No, and he felt bad, and he didn't know. Like I think there was all that stuff going on. It was just a weird situation.
He's not going to try and sell guys on him being there longer than he is if he's not going to be there, which we all knew he wasn't going to be. Or now we do.
And I mean specifically in his not talking. The Cavs fired Brown in 2010 without talking to him. He just wasn't saying anything. You're just left in the dark. You can't leave him in the dark.
Yeah, but that's my point, is that he had a reason to leave us in the dark then. And likewise, he didn't leave the Heat in the dark in 2011, 2012, 2013. It was 2014 when he didn't know what the fuck he was going to do, right?
Right.
He was like, I think I might go back to Cleveland. I kind of want to go soon. This might be the time to do it. So that's why he wasn't talking to them. Unless LeBron wants to go somewhere else, which I don't think is really a possibility here.
No, I don't think so either.
He has no incentive to not be on the phone with us, and I think he's been that way all season. First of all, with Kevin Love, with talking about J.R. Smith, saying, "Bring him in here, I'll take care of it." He's been good on that score all season. I cannot believe he would be that way now. And for Brian Windhorst to suggested, I think, is kind of ridiculous and unwarranted and a little embarrassing.
Well, Windhorst has just said that's his history.
Yes, but he's suggesting that it's
way.
likely to happen again. Yeah.
Right. So he can't do that. He can't wait a long time to make a decision about how he wants to do his contract. He needs to let us know right away so that we can – that's the big domino that's got to fall, obviously.
Agreed.
And everything else has to go from that. So he can't screw around. So that was my long aside to saying if somebody else offers TT the max, I hope LeBron is stepping up enough so that we can have a real conversation with him and say, here are the consequences of doing this. Because he's not a max player. It would be too bad to tie up that money with him. And as people have pointed out, then we'd have max contracts tied up with 3 guys who are sort of fours.
Yeah.
LeBron, Love, and TT. And obviously very different kinds of players, doing different things. Still.
But don't dodge, Matty. I sent a dodge here. Yes, obviously LeBron says, guys, sign TT. This is my team, sign TT. We need him. Of course we do it. Of course we do it because having LeBron is worth the cap restrictions of signing TT to a ridiculous max contract. But what would you tell LeBron? Would you tell LeBron to let TT walk if he gets a max offer?
See, this is where it gets tough. In a vacuum, yes. He's not a max player. Can't sign non-max players to max contracts. They're non-close max players to max contracts, right?
Right.
I don't think Draymond's quite a max player either, but he's max-ish NBA world, and that's close enough. TT's a level below him, I think. But our salary cap restrictions are such that I don't think we could replace him in a very good way.
Nope. Exactly.
So I think you might even have to bite the bullet here.
I 100% agree with you. I think we cannot offer him the max. In fact, we need to be aggressive now. I forget how it works, Matty. Do you know? We can offer him contracts now, right? We don't have to wait for free agency to start, right? We should try to get him locked up before free agency begins on July 1st, right? July 1st when it starts.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to sign him early and offer him.
I don't think he's going to. Why would he sign for anything besides the max with us, though? I think if he wants to make a ton of money, and that's what everybody says, and he offered not the max, even if his agent thinks that's the most he's going to get, there's no harm for saying, all right, we're going to go see what the market says.
I guess I feel like we should be able to get. Has his agent said that he wants the max? He expects the max?
No.
I don't think anyone's actually said that.
No, but if you think there's a chance of getting it, and there's almost no downside to making the Cavs sweat a little bit.
Well, the downside is
a good agent would do that, I think.
Well, again, that's the funny thing about the situation is that his agent is LeBron's best friend and agent.
Right, that's weird.
Right. So LeBron wants to win. LeBron knows enough about the GM situation, the salary cap situation, to be like, look, Tristan, I want you to get fucking paid, but a max contract is going to really hamstring us. You're obviously going to make more than what did he turn down already? Was it 4 years and 52?
Yeah, 4 years 50 or 4 years and 52, something like that.
Yeah, I think we offer him something like 60, which is halfway to max at 4 years, and I think LeBron talks him into it and says, like, dude, you just earned yourself like $8 million more. Like, that's 100% right. Like, and people were saying the Cavs are crazy for offering him that much before. Like, it was crazy to turn that down. Jacob Rosen's positing, I think, like $67 million a year, which is not quite the max. Like, what would I forget what the max would be for him.
I think it's 4 years and 80 something because it's $20 million a year.
Right. Yeah, he turned down $52 million, 4 years. I think $70 million is a max for his draft class. I think something around $70 million. Maybe 72, 73, because he's a little bit higher drafted. I'm going off Klay Thompson's semi-max contract that he got.
Well, look at Kyrie's.
Kyrie's was what?
Same draft. He's the same year.
What was Kyrie's?
I can't remember.
It was an extension too, so it's hard to me to make sense of it.
Well, regardless.
Anyway, it's like 15 times 4 is what?
60.
So, but it's more than that. I feel like it's more. I thought Kyrie was getting paid $15 a year. Anyway, we're not being really helpful right now. The point being, I really think we should try to come at him hard and aggressive with a big increase off 52, like 60, 62 million, something like that. Like a big increase and say, we love you. We want you to stay here. I don't want this to go to free agency. Let's get you locked in now and keep this team together and see what he does. Yeah, obviously we're outside the LeBron, so we'll know whether this is going to be good or not before we do that. If we can't, we see what happens. If some other team offers in the max, if they can't, we let them go to the market. If some other team offers in the max, I think we just have to bite the bullet and match it.
Yeah,
because
I don't think somebody's going to go offer him the max.
I don't think so either. But if they do, just fucking bite the bullet and do it. Like some team might know that we have to match it, so they'll offer.
Just trying to screw us. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that happening 100%. It's bold, it's ballsy, but I could see someone doing that. And if they did, we just have to bite it because, frankly, we got to win now, and we're not going to replace Tristan Thompson now. And with our salary cap situation, we just deal with it and figure out a way to make it work. And we deal with 4 max contracts is what we do. This is crazy, but hey, we got an owner that's willing to spend. You just keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about JR and Shump, the New York Knicks cast-offs.
Yeah, this is where it gets tricky.
This gets tricky and tough. So Shump is also in Tristan Thompson's draft class, also looking for a big deal. JR, it's a different situation. He said he's going to turn down his $6.7 million option on next season, which is just for 1 year. He hasn't indicated what he's looking for. Jacob Rosen, in his piece we've been talking about and citing throughout this podcast, just pegs him at $10 million a year, and also pegs Iman Shumpert at $10 million a year. I don't think we can pay both those guys. I don't think we can pay them both $10 million. I agree. I want to throw this to you with my initial thought being that I feel like while $10 million is too much, honestly, for either player at all, period. Again, the same Tristan Thompson scenario comes into play of we can't replace them. Period. We just can't. Right. So we're sort of at their mercy a little bit. At the same time, they also want, they want to win now. Like that's why JR's motivation is as enigmatic as JR himself. I think he has a ton of motivation to just stay with LeBron as long as he possibly can, to keep having a chance to redeem himself in championship rounds. So he might discount a little bit. At the same time, he's JR. Of course, going to go get that fucking money. Like, why wouldn't he? And I don't blame him at all for doing that, or Iman. But we can't pay them both $10 million. We can't. I almost said I'd love to pay one of them $10 million. I think Shump if we had to pay Shump $10 million, I think I'd do it. I don't want to.
10 over 4 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. $10 million over 4 years. But JR, I hope we sell him on I would much rather. This is crazy. Hear me out. I'd much rather sell JR on like a $7 million contract, right? $7 million a year, like no big increase, but like I'll give him a bunch of years. Like you're gonna be with LeBron a long time, but let us pay you less because we need the cap savings. And isn't it more important to note? Because if he wants like $10 million a year, offer him for 1 year. Like that, fine. Over the next 2 years, or like this, like I was saying before, don't worry about the next 2 years. I pay him a ton. I maybe pay him $10 million next year. Maybe even $10 million the year after that. Fuck it. But then it's gonna drop down to $4 million. something
it'll be really
way lower.
It'll be really interesting to see what his market is.
Yeah.
Because coming into the trade, it was assumed that he would take that option because nobody was going to pay him more than $6 million next year.
Exactly.
And he had sort of played his way out of that with the Cavs and maybe played his way back into it in the finals a little bit. I mean, he hit the bed pretty well and good for us.
Yep.
So I think maybe for both those guys, you got to see what the market is looking at for them and then adjust accordingly. And I think whatever we can get for the Haywood contract plays into this too. Because if you can get somebody that can come and fill that role for a similar salary, it probably precludes signing both of them.
I agree. Although I don't know, it depends. I mean, again, we're willing to be over the cap next 2 years, so it depends on what kind of contract we get back. That's a fun thing, is that we can take on ridiculously bullshit contracts that do not make any sense for us cap-wise, as long as it doesn't hurt us in year 3. So I think that's the key thing to think about when you see all these deals coming out. And that's the funny thing is that, the funny thing is now while we are under the, we have no leverage with TT, right? We're kind of at his mercy because of the LeBron situation in particular. With JR and Shump, Well, they sort of have us under a gun, as we said, that sense that we can't replace them with anyone anywhere near as good on the free agent market. Again, I don't think the market's going to be that hot for them. And one, Shump, we're going to give a qualifying offer to, so we'll just match. And everyone knows we will spend what we need to on Shump, and I think that will preclude a lot of offers. I think that will hurt his market, knowing the Cavs, like as Griff said, we're sending qualifying offers right now. Yeah, to Shump, and I think he also has a Deli. We'll talk about him in a second. And meaning like we're gonna keep them. You know, he basically was like we're bringing them back. We'll see about what we bring him back at, but we're getting qualifying offers so we can match anything that he gets offered. That I think will hurt his offer because no one's gonna want to waste time with an offer that they know that we're gonna match.
Right, it ties up their cap during that time
exactly.
too. Mm-hmm. And Shumpert hurt his value a little bit during the finals too, although I suspect he was hurt all finals long after that.
Oh, totally was. I think even if the market's not high for him, we're still going to overpay a little bit just to be good to him. Just to build goodwill. Even though it's kind of a ridiculous thing to say or do, but I think that will actually play into a little bit. That we will, more than any other team out there, respect the fact that you played hurt and that you weren't showing all that you could show. We see the potential in you. So, I think that will play into the negotiations. That even if, for example, he gets no offers in the market, we're still going to give him a big deal, I think.
Right.
Hopefully under 10. If we can get Shump under 10, that's amazing. 10 a year from Belmont. That would be fantastic. A fantastic result, even if that's like more than he's worth. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. No, in a unique spot as far as that goes.
And I also feel like we could surprise with a good deal with Shump, meaning again, JR, with a relatively low per year value, but like I have a feeling that JR is going to want to is going to value the years more than salary. Is that crazy?
I don't know. Yeah, he doesn't seem like somebody that thinks long term to me.
Except that I don't know. He just was so unhappy with New York, and now he's with LeBron. It's the LeBron factor that tells me that he might trade not a lot. Like he's not going to go crazy down low, but I think he, for example, might take a lot of front loaded money over the first 2 years for 2 more guaranteed years, but lower in salary. Right? Just knowing he has that option. As
long as the total dollars are the same.
Yeah, or giving us team options for 3 and 4 kind of thing. I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
I think that's what Griffin has to do is negotiate JR to keep him with us for the next 2 years, and that's it. And give us flexibility to not be hung with the JR albatross in years 3 and 4.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Of the two, Shump's more important than JR to you?
Yes, he's younger. He doesn't have the offense, but. Just watching him in that series, the way he played defense, and he had problems off the ball, but I feel like he's smart enough and athletic enough and to get better and better and better at that. But I've never seen anyone strip the ball like him. Everyone says, "Oh, just guys don't get called for slapping the ball and hitting the hand." No, every time I watch him do it, I don't like people. Sometimes people get called. It's a borderline 50-50 call when you slap at the ball, whether they call a foul or not, even if you get all ball, right?
Sure.
But Shump's developed a reputation for doing it really well. And seriously, every time I see it, I'm going like, there's not a doubt in my mind. He got all ball. He found a way to get that ball with a crazy ass swipe that looks like it's a wild swipe, but he just somehow finds the ball every time, doesn't catch their hand. It's
uncanny.
Uncanny, exactly. It's so like that in itself is so much more valuable, I think, long term for the team than the craziness of JR, but Jesus, man, I want them both back. I can't deal with one of them leaving. I can't.
I have all these JR shirts now. I can't.
What are you gonna do with it? Yeah, exactly. Did our friend Riffle buy a JR jersey? Did he buy one?
I don't know if he ever did it.
I should have asked.
He's got no boots, so probably not.
He was over my house for dinner the other night, and I forgot to ask him. But by the way, Matt, I think I told you this before, but I want to tell the whole podcast world that Riffle, who self-proclaimed doesn't know a lot about basketball, proclaimed that I had the superior X and O's in our partnership. So I just wanted to put that out there. He also said that you were the star of the show otherwise, and I'd talk a little too much. But hey, I'll take the X and O's compliment from a guy who doesn't know anything about basketball.
Yeah, you feel good about that.
Yeah, I'll find a way. But anyway, let me move on. Deli, Matty.
We got to be careful here.
This is real tough. This is where playoffs throw everything out of kilter. Before I ask you a question, let me just tell you a little story. Let me put on the Patty cap here. Let me hold the conch for a second.
You have a problem finding the conch.
Yes, I do. But no, Delly, signed on for this team. I still remember people saying like he does not belong in an NBA roster. We ripped on him the first year he was on the team. Through the first half of this year, people were saying, "Can we please get rid of him? Like, get rid of him." Even our friend Grant had said it. Was it anyone on this roster, not on the SH players list, our friends, not want this guy gone? I was the one guy that was like, I can just see this guy having this kind of playoffs. That crazy out of nowhere, difference-making thing in 10, 15-minute bursts, right? I didn't see this at all, obviously. But point being, he's come out of nowhere to be our, like, little mini X factor, who's limited, obviously. He's not athletic. He is not reliable as a three-point shooter. Even though he hit 40% in the regular season, he can't
handle the ball.
He cannot handle the ball.
Entering the ball into the post.
He cannot guard guys one-on-one, which the Golden State Warriors took 6 games to figure out. That stop setting picks. Just take him down one-on-one. He can't stay with you. He cannot. I remember watching a game. I think it was the game I got to see courtside in Philly, where I can't remember. Actually, maybe the one on TV. Actually, the first game he played against Golden State. Actually, when LeBron was hurt. Iguodala was driving past him off the dribble, not in the fast break. And Delly just fell down because he couldn't keep up with him and just reached out and grabbed his waist. Mm-hmm. Like he was like being dragged on defense in a football play, by a powerful running back. Like that's how unathletic he is. I want him back though. That all being said, what he did in the playoffs is not a outlier. In certain roles, in certain spots, in certain schemes, he is a huge asset to have off the bench. You don't want him to be your number 2 point guard, but you want to bring him back. Is there any chance, Matty, we can bring him back for less than $3 million a season?
Yeah, I think so.
Please.
Who's going to go throw money at him?
I don't know, but God, I think again, Jacob Rosen, who's been signing this whole time, said $3 million for him or something like that. That was his guess.
No. I don't.
The Knicks might, Matt. The Knicks might. The Knicks tried to, they were our main bidding partner when we tried to sign him for $100,000, after the draft 2 years ago. So
that's true. I mean, I don't want to underestimate the stupidity of some teams in this league, but his carriage turned back into a pumpkin over the last 3 games of that series. Fast
and briefly, that was so unfair. Everyone was like, Stephen A. Smith, that preternatural idiot. Who just would say things like, it's like, now we know what kind of player Matthew Dellavedova is. It's like, yeah, fuck you. He was always that player. The point was that player was stopping Steph Curry. That was the whole fucking point.
Yeah.
Delly wasn't saying it. Delly wasn't saying, I'm the best player in the world. None of the Cavs were saying it. They were just saying he works hard, and he slowed him down, which he did. I just had to stand up at Delly for a second there. I never got a chance to say it, and everyone loves my Stephen A. impersonation.
I think we have to be disciplined on this one. I hope somebody's not stupid enough to throw a ton of money at him, and I think we have to be smart enough to. Yeah,
we got to walk away. I feel like
God bless you, Billy, if somebody gives him that kind of contract.
Got to be thrilled for him if he gets that. But yeah. What are you going to pay him? What are you willing to pay him?
I think I'd do 2 years, $4 million.
Yeah.
A player option. Or team, I don't know, a team option for $3 million in the 3rd year.
Yeah, maybe let him earn it. Yeah, I'd do that.
Something like that.
I'd also give him a 4-year contract, honestly, but for much less per year, like closer to 1.5 if he wants. 1.5 is nothing to sneeze at. If you get it for 4 years.
4 years, $6 million
deal
awesome. Or something like that.
That's. I mean, I know I know that my athletic prowess. Well, I'm not 6'4" and I can't play basketball. I feel like. I feel an affinity for his athletic ability. If I were to face that contract, I would 100% take it every fucking time. I would not pass up. I would not leave $2 million on the table for just to get more money in the first 2 years, knowing I might get more in years 3 and 4. I wouldn't be sure I would totally be around.
Right.
3 and 4. I would take that. So hopefully we can do that.
They just got. I mean, he's a fan favorite. I want him back. We just got to be smart. hope Griffin is smart enough to know that. I think he is.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe we give him a signing bonus this year. Because, again, this whole thing about the year 1 and 2, it's okay. We can spend a lot of money this year and next year. Fuck it. Like, let's you know what? That might be the smart thing for him to do is pay him a shit ton, like a big sign. I forget, do they do signing bonuses in the NBA? They don't really, do they?
No, it's an NFL thing, really.
Yeah, it's really an NFL thing. They don't really do that, but they should do something similar because they can schedule contracts to be high in 1 year and lower in the next year, right? I haven't seen that a lot, but they can do that. They should do that now.
For salary cap purposes, they just weigh out the average per year, and it just matters for.
Oh, really? So
I think that's how it works.
Oh, interesting. Because that might screw my theory then, right? That we can spend a lot in the first 2 years, but not in the years 3 and 4.
It makes the contracts a lot more movable as you get later because they're just.
The point being, you have to move it though. The point being, you have to move it though, right? So that ruins my plan. So maybe we do just look. Maybe if we do $3 million, we can do it for the first 2 years because who gives a shit? But yeah, I agree with you. I hope we actually offer him 2 years, $2 million, and he takes it because.
It'd be a shame to see him go someplace else.
I agree. It's either that or what. Or
that's the vanity speaking, not the NBA executive.
I agree, but that's my point. I feel like we should not let him go, and because we can match any contract. Like if somebody offers him a big, long, more than 2 year contract, poison pill contract, because other NBA teams.
God bless him. I'm glad he made his money.
Exactly. Other NBA teams will know that they can throw a poison pill. They know we don't want to spend in the third year.
Yeah.
If they're smart about it, so they can offer a deal that will hurt us through 3 years. So we'll see. All right. Last thing I want to just briefly bring up. There was a big Twitter storm yesterday. Mo Gotti says he wants to play for Charlotte or Cleveland next year. Your thoughts, Matty?
It is tempting on the one hand to like in an everybody comes home kind of way and make right. And I felt particularly bad for Mo when LeBron left. He took it really hard and had really nice things to say about Cleveland, and I will always love him for that.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's a good fit.
Yeah. I'd say tempting, but but back away slowly and then run away. Why? His defense has always been kind of terrible, right?
Yeah.
Also, like the reason you want him, right, is they can handle the ball. He can hit 3-pointers.
He can generate offense on his own, right? That's somebody that can play with the bench unit and create offense, which
exactly. And you like
sorely missing. We could have used that in the championship.
Yep, exactly.
Series for sure.
But the last 3 seasons, like his best 2 seasons were with the Cavs. And that's the thing. Don't take Mo Williams from the Cavs, and not Mo Williams in his Cavs years as the starting point. Now, part of that's because he was playing with LeBron, so he had his best years. That's a very natural thing when playing with LeBron. You tend to have your best years, so that's not a total outlier. At the same time, there's been a disturbing trend over his last 3 seasons in 3-point field goal percentage and field goal percentage. He went from 38% on 3-pointers 3 seasons ago to 36 to 34 this past year. 34 for a guard is terrible. Is Jeff Teague, you don't have to guard him, terrible. And his field goal percentage went from 43%, which is not that good, even for a guard. It's not terrible for a guard, but not that good, to 42 to 40, which is kind of the death knell. It reminds me of that phrase they used to say about Larry Hughes. All roads lead to 40.
Yeah.
He might get hot for a while. You notice that Hughes 50-point game that Williams had last season. He was one of like 5 guys to have it last season. But all roads lead to 40, meaning he had a ton of horrible stretches then to pull that average back down to 40. Also, he did not have a great clutch reputation even in his best years with Cleveland. And it brings me back to Ned's point that he made earlier in this podcast. The mental toughness of these Cavs. I don't think Mo's got it. And now I get my back end caveat that you gave at the beginning that I do love Mo. I have a really soft spot for Mo Williams.
No, he's a special place in my heart for sure.
Special place. The way he handled himself, the way he was so hurt, like we all were by LeBron, and the way he said something about the Cavs when he left, and the fact that trading him gave us Kyrie Irving. I will always love him for that. Yeah. if he wants to come for the veteran minimum, sure. Just to have him on the bench would be great. And it'd be great in the regular season. He would be an asset, but I tend to think there must be something better out there. As tempting as Mogadi is. All right, Matty, go ahead. Do your last point.
I was going to say this fun. It's an interesting offseason. It'll get interesting quick for us, I think. And there are at least 3 roster spots we're upgrading: Haywood, Perkins, and Marion. None of those guys are going to be on the team next year. Yeah. Possibly James Jones' spot, depending on what happens with him, and maybe the JR/Shumpert spot if we don't get both of them. So 3 to 5 guys that we could bring in. We need to have people that can contribute next year versus what the end of our bench was this year. I'll be very interested to see what Griffin is able to do. It's a nice test for him.
Yeah, and also for Blatt, because I feel like Joe Harris is going to actually be able to contribute next year a little bit more. I feel like he actually could generate some offense, but he was obviously a rookie and really raw. He had some early burn. I'm excited to see if he can step up and be more than a Luke Jackson type, which would be acceptable for him because he's a second-round pick, not a first-round pick like Luke Jackson was. But just watching him play, he's not horrible on defense, not great by any stretch. But if he can get better at defense and work his way into the rotation a little bit more, I'd like to see more burn out of him in the regular season because he can hit threes and he actually can drive to the basket. He's talented. So I like him a lot. And if we can get some more guys, if we can fill those 2 spots, that backup point guard role, so that Delly doesn't have to play tons of minutes, that Delly can play that 10 to 15 minutes off the bench max, right? Also, so that I really don't want Kyrie, unless it's a really big game where we have to really win. I don't want Kyrie playing more than like 32 minutes a game.
No, all those guys. I mean, I'd much rather have a deep team that can rest all those. LeBron.
I would love to see
Kyrie, Love.
Yeah, let's move on briefly now because we're coming up on 2 hours now, so we have to wrap it up here. Let's talk about the outlook for 2015-2016, since this is our last Cavs-specific podcast for the foreseeable future until next season. For me, the things I'm looking for, things I'm hoping for with the Cavs next year is for LeBron to have a career low in minutes. I'd like to see him closing in on. I mean, I think he had 37 this year per game. I should look this up. I don't know, but it was definitely his lowest, but still very high.
Yep. Get that down around 33, 34.
Yeah,
like
just gonna say. I'd love to aim for 32. He'll probably get under 35 would be great. Would be fantastic.
Yep.
I'd also love for him to take 2 weeks off again. Just do it. Just do Spurs style. Take 2 weeks off. Early in the season, late in the season. Just do it twice. I like to have him take a whole month of games off. I don't care about our seeding anymore. I think LeBron's right about that. I'd love to see Kevin Love get a lot of time off, more just games here and there. Whenever his back's acting up, give him the fucking day off. Like this, I want him to be super healthy. And I'd love for Kyrie just to play lower minutes overall. I'd like to hit him to get close to 32, 33, just so there's less wear and tear, less less opportunities for him to hurt himself. And I'd love to just have him get those kinds of days off. Just give him a day off. Learn. The more we can learn to play without those key guys, the more robust we can be down the stretch. I think if something happens to one of those guys, I think we learned that in the playoffs that we need to find a way to do that. But all that being said, I want to see all that happen, and I would love to see us run scorched earth over the NBA next season.
It'd be great. I want most of all, Pat, I want this Warriors team in the finals next year.
Big time, 100%.
Wipe that smirks off their faces.
I would love just to absolutely destroy them. I'd love to see that. That would be the best. Anything else you're looking forward to?
No, that's it. These are nice times, man. It's so much better than what we've been through for the last 4 years. The team's going to be good next year. The team will be good. Whatever happens, they're going to be good for the next few years. It's a ride we should all look forward to. Absolutely. These are great times to be a Cavs fan. And not just a Cavs fan, Matty. These are, dare I say it, the Cavs are so good. These are great times to be a Cleveland fan. Look at that. It can even override how awful the Browns still are, and how mediocre the Tribes still are, which we will talk about in our next podcast, which will be renamed the Cleveland Sports Hour with Matty and Patty.
And I don't know when we're going to do that, Matty, but we're going to give our wives a break. I think they'll appreciate that.
Oh, I suspect so.
But maybe, maybe
a couple weeks.
Couple weeks, but I'll be on vacation the weekend before the 4th of July weekend. So maybe the weekend before 4th of July weekend we do something like this.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Beautiful. All right, so stay tuned, gentlemen. We will be back with the Matty and Patty Cleveland Sports Hour in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, keep the faith, Cavs fans.
Keep strong. It was a good season.
It was a good season, and as we all know to say, there is always next year, and next year can't come soon enough. Until next time, this is Matty and Patty saying...
Friendship.
All right, we nailed it that time. All right, Matty, go Cavs.
Go Cavs, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.